just 7 minutes. That was the brief window of time Senator Mark Kelly needed to tear apart the flawless media facade of Pete Hegseth, the nominee for U.S. Secretary of Defense, bypassing the hollow pleasantries. The Senate hearing quickly morphed into a suffocating psychological operating room, broadcast on live television. This was a collision of two polar opposite schools of thought. A cold, razor-sharp Mark Kelly, bringing the analytical mindset of a former astronaut and using ironclad evidence to corner his opponent, versus a Pete Hegseth clinging to rehearsed PR talking points, playing the victim of a smear campaign. Below is a detailed breakdown, peeling back the layers of strategy in those 420 fateful seconds that shattered the illusion of so-called transparency.
And I just want to go on the record.
Your comment is noted.
Thank you.
Mr. Hegseth, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service to this country.
Thank you, Senator.
Few nominees come into this room with all the necessary experience to do this job, to be Secretary of Defense. We get that. It's a reflection on just how big of a job this is. What I want to understand is whether or not you bring any of the necessary experience that this job requires. And here's where I'm concerned. Senator Coleman, in introducing you, and this is a quote, he said, "He has struggled and overcome great personal challenges," unquote. You walk in here saying that you've had personal and character issues in your past, including heavy drinking, which you wrote about. And you said, and this is a quote from you, that you said, "I sit before you as an open book." Yet you haven't actually said what personal challenges it is that you've overcome when you've been asked about them. So I'm going to give you an opportunity here to be as forthright as you say you want to be.
To understand Mark Kelly's brilliance in this segment, we must dissect a classic survival tactic of modern politics: calculated vulnerability. Hegseth and his PR team know full well that his track record is far from clean. Instead of passively waiting for the press to dig it up, they launched a preemptive strike with a half-truth. Hegseth admitted to past heavy drinking and proudly declared, "I am an open book." This move is incredibly cunning. It creates a moral armor, turning anyone who attacks him into a bully beating up a repentant man, while simultaneously sweeping far worse transgressions under the rug of corrected mistakes. But Kelly, with a cool head, did not step into that emotional trap. He unleashed a masterful debating technique, using the opponent's own logic to suffocate them. Kelly's underlying message is crystal clear. "Fine. If you are an open book, let me read aloud the pages you are trying to hide." By echoing the praises from Hegseth's own camp, Kelly eliminated his opponent's avenue of escape. Hegseth lost the privilege of playing the victim because Kelly was simply helping him fully deliver on his promise of transparency. The suffocating atmosphere begins with this very measured politeness.
So I'm going to give you an opportunity here to be as forthright as you say you want to be. So while leading concerned veterans of America, there were very specific cases cited by individuals about your conduct. I'm going to go through a few of them, and I just want you to tell me if these are true or false. Very simple. On Memorial Day 2014, at a CVA event in Virginia, you needed to be carried out of the event for being intoxicated.
Senator, anonymous
True.
smears.
Just true or false? Very simple. Summer of 2014 in Cleveland, drunk in public with the CVA team.
Anonymous smears.
I'm just asking for true or false questions. True or false answers. An event in North Carolina, drunk in front of 3 young female staff members after you had instituted a no alcohol policy and then reversed it. True or false?
Anonymous smears.
December of 2014 at the CVA Christmas party at the Grand Hyatt at Washington, D.C., you were noticeably intoxicated and had to be carried up to your room. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
Another time, a CVA staffer stated that you passed out in the back of a party bus. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
In 2014, while in Louisiana on official business for
The moment Kelly changes the tempo, shifting to a rapid-fire series of true or false questions, is when the Senate floor turns into a high-pressure interrogation room. At this step, Kelly deploys the narrow corridor questioning tactic by only allowing true or false answers, Kelly completely strips away Hegseth's ability to use the flowery rhetoric or deflective speeches he spent so much time preparing. Look at the sheer weight of the details. Kelly doesn't throw out vague accusations. He locks onto exact coordinates of truth. Memorial Day 2014 in Virginia, summer 2014 in Cleveland, the party at the Grand Hyatt Hotel. This ruthless level of detail automatically plants a firm psychological anchor in the listener's mind. An event with a specific time, location, and witnesses cannot simply be fiction. Hegseth's defensive reaction, in turn, exposes his absolute helplessness. Repeating the phrase, anonymous smears, 4 to 5 times, is an outright optics disaster. In crisis management, this stonewalling tactic only works against baseless rumors, but against Kelly's precision drills, that mechanical chorus turns Hegseth from a commanding leader into a flustered man reciting a lifeless mantra. A lie repeated in the face of ironclad evidence doesn't magically become the truth. It merely unmasks the sheer panic of a man desperately trying to cover his tracks.
Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
In 2014, while in Louisiana on official business for CVA, did you take your staff, including young female staff members, to a strip club?
Absolutely not. Anonymous smears.
So, is it accurate that the organization reached a financial settlement with a female staffer who claimed to be at a strip club with you, and there was a colleague who attempted to sexually assault her? Was there a financial settlement?
Senator, I was not involved in that. I don't know the nature of how that played out.
But you understand there was a financial settlement for a young female staffer who accused another member of the organization, not you, of sexual assault in a strip club.
We have multiple statements on the record referring to that.
But you claim you were not there when that occurred.
Absolutely not.
This is the exact moment Kelly brings down the legal hammer, crushing Hegseth's entire defensive line. The focal point here is no longer keywords like strip club or intoxicated, but rather financial settlement and statements on the record. In reality, no organization pulls tens of thousands of dollars from its operating funds to cover up an anonymous smear. Once the money has moved and non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, are signed, the incident carries undeniable legal weight. The accusation has now materialized into a documented, acknowledged reality. However, Kelly's fatal blow isn't aimed at proving Hegseth's physical presence at the scene. It strikes directly at his feeble excuse. I was not involved. I don't know the nature of how that played out. Stop and recognize the absolute absurdity of this. Hegseth is sitting there auditioning for the role of U.S. Secretary of Defense, asking Congress to entrust him with the lives of millions of soldiers, global weapon systems, and a $1 trillion budget. And yet, when confronted with a sexual assault scandal that occurred right within the small-scale organization where he served as Chief Executive Officer, CEO, his answer is, I don't know. If that is the truth, he genuinely didn't know. It exposes a useless figurehead manager who cannot even track cash flow or protect the safety of his subordinates. If he is lying, he knew but intentionally covered it up. He becomes a moral accomplice. Clinging to plausible deniability at this stage is no longer a lifeline. It is a guilty verdict of sheer incompetence. Kelly successfully proved that Hegseth is entirely unfit, both morally and managerially, to run the Pentagon.
Have you overcome personal issues, or are you the target of a smear campaign? It can't be both. It's clear to me that you're not being honest with us or the American people because you know the truth would disqualify you from getting the job. And just as concerning as each of these specific disqualifying accusations are, what concerns me just as much is the idea.
These final moments are a masterpiece in critical thinking. Kelly has cornered Hegseth into an inescapable logical paradox, the ultimate dilemma. Have you truly overcome personal mistakes, or are you the victim of a smear campaign? You are only allowed to pick one. Both cannot coexist. If everything is just a fabricated smear, as he has been vehemently arguing this whole time, then what exactly is the great personal challenge that he proudly claims to have overcome? On the flip side, if he truly possesses dark chapters that require grace and forgiveness, then those records and receipts are the very proof of that darkness. So why deny them outright? Hegseth essentially dropped a rock on his own foot, The open book mask shatters into 100 pieces of deception. However, Senator Mark Kelly's profound brilliance lies in how he reframed the entire picture. He didn't degrade the hearing into a petty moral tribunal, judging someone's drinking habits. Kelly elevated it into a critical national security liability. Why is honesty a matter of life and death for a Secretary of Defense? Because a high-ranking official carrying a multitude of dark secrets to hide, a habit of dodging responsibility, and an instinct to lie under pressure is the perfect easy prey for hostile intelligence, blackmail campaigns, compromat. If Hegseth is willing to deny the truth, to cover up a settlement of a few tens of thousands of dollars, how will he behave when facing existential geopolitical crises? The political ecosystem in Washington has long been a breeding ground for compromises and cover-ups, but through these 7 razor-sharp minutes of interrogation, Mark Kelly transmitted an unmistakable message. America absolutely cannot entrust the nuclear football and the lives of its military personnel to a man whose first reflex is always to run from the truth. No matter how fresh the PR suit he wears may be, the price of a lie is always steep.
Good evening. There's an unspoken rule in Washington. When an official is pushed out the door, yet hailed by the mainstream media as a conquering hero who completed their mission, that is the clearest sign that ashes are being frantically swept under the rug. Over the past 24 hours, America has been drowning in empty platitudes about Attorney General Pam Bondi's safe landing after a mere 14 months in power. Fox News called it a smooth transition. They praised her loyalty. They praised her record on crime reduction. But ladies and gentlemen, they are lying to you. Or at the very least, they are only showing you half the truth, the most ruthless half. Let's look at how their media machine paints a picture-perfect illusion.
Right now, she said, quoting here, "Over the next month, I will be working tirelessly to transition the office of Attorney General to the amazing Todd Blanche before moving to an important private sector rollout. I'm thrilled about it, and where I will continue fighting for President Trump and this administration, leading President Trump's historic and highly successful efforts to make America safer and more secure has been the honor of a lifetime and easily the most consequential first year of the Department of Justice in American history. Since February 2025, we have secured the lowest murder rate in 125 years, secured first ever terrorism convictions against members of Antifa, shattered domestic and transnational gangs across the country, taken custody of more than 90 key cartel figures, and won 24 favorable rulings at the Supreme Court. I remain eternally grateful for the trust that President Trump placed in me to make America safe again." One of the themes we have seen from this Trump administration, which counter to the previous Trump administration, is there has been, Jim Trusty, this sense of loyalty, right?
They call it a smooth transition. Their pundits go on air and assert that everything she said is factually accurate. But today, we are going to bypass the cosmetic spin that political PR wants to inject into your minds. We are going to rip down this smokescreen to reveal exactly what ousted an attorney general right in the middle of a hurricane. Why is FBI Director Kash Patel sweating bullets on the Senate floor? And why is the person chosen to replace her a former personal defense attorney? All these questions, ladies and gentlemen, point back to a single shadow that is shaking the entire elite establishment to its core. Jeffrey Epstein. To decode why Bondi was fired, we have to rewind the clock exactly 14 months. The time was February 2025. Facing massive public pressure demanding transparency, the Epstein Files Transparency Act was passed. It was a ticking time bomb planted right under the feet of the power elite. It mandated that the DOJ declassify and release the complete VIP client list, the accomplices in this billionaire's criminal network. At that time, Pam Bondi made a promise. She stood before the nation and declared that the files were on her desk and justice would be served. But 14 agonizing months later, what did you get? What the American public received were tens of thousands of pages. Pitch black, heavy black redactions wiped out every name, every location, every single trace. Bondi turned the DOJ from an agency of justice into a massive document shredding machine. Her appearing on television today to boast about her legacy is essentially just a hasty layer of makeup covering up a disastrous tenure. Pam Bondi didn't voluntarily resign to step aside for anyone. She was purged by the system because the fury of the public and independent lawmakers had breached the threshold of containment. She failed in her mission to pacify the masses. without leaking the blacklist. And inevitably, when a tool outlives its usefulness, it is discarded. The mainstream media is once again deliberately whitewashing this stain. Listen to how they flatter blind loyalty instead of demanding transparency.
Again, one of the themes we have seen from this Trump administration, which counter to the previous Trump administration, is there has been, Jim Trusty, this sense of loyalty, right? Even with the Kristi Noem's taking a different position and Pam Bondi, there is this continued loyalty, no bad blood. In the previous administration, there was a fair bit of bad blood.
Yeah, I think that's a great sign. I'm glad you pointed that out. I mean, when you think about it, the first term, he was new to politics. He was new to Washington. He had to depend on recommendations from folks. This time he came into it really clear-eyed about what he wants from different people in the cabinet and in other positions. And I think it's a very welcome sign. And by the way, everything she said is undeniably true. Like, you could say, oh, this is all self-flattery. No, everything she said in that message is actually factually accurate and a really good thing at a time where the department needed an abrupt change. So I do think a victory lap for her and the president is worthwhile. And I also think
a victory lap? Absolutely not. Ladies and gentlemen, she didn't step aside. She was ejected by the system because public outrage had reached an uncontrollable boiling point. Covering up the Epstein client list became a ticking time bomb, and she was the one forced to fall on her sword. But Pam Bondi is just the tip of the iceberg. The man in the shadows who actually manipulated the documents before they ever reached the DOJ is none other than FBI Director Kash Patel. Just last month, right on Capitol Hill, we witnessed the most explosive confrontation that completely ripped the fake mask off this system. Listen to the sheer audacity for yourselves. That is exactly how this machine operates. Kash Patel's FBI blacks out the documents with a Sharpie and tosses them to the DOJ. Pam Bondi's DOJ catches that pile of scrap paper, then shoves it over to Congress. They juggle the ball of responsibility to buy time, to shield the powerful entities whose names haven't been called yet. But if we place all the blame entirely on Pam Bondi's shoulders, we've fallen right into their trap. Bondi is just a pawn, the one who truly holds the dirtiest secrets. The one who intercepted the documents before they reached the DOJ is FBI Director Kash Patel. Last month on Capitol Hill, we witnessed one of the most brazen hearings in American history. When grilled on why the FBI submitted unreadable documents for a Transparency Act, Kash Patel pulled the oldest yet most effective card in the intelligence community's deck: national security. Think about that for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, the identities of sick individuals involved in a pedophile ring are now elevated to national security secrets. Are we protecting the security of America or protecting the careers of billionaires and high-ranking politicians? It's a perfectly choreographed play. Patel's FBI redacts the files, hands them to the DOJ. Bondi's DOJ takes them, shrugs, says we're just following FBI protocol, and hands them to Congress. And they pass the buck to stall for time. But the truth always bleeds through. Leaks from Washington insiders reveal that in closed-door meetings, powerful figures were panicking, screaming. If this list gets out, my friends are ruined. Who are they? Democrats or Republicans? The bitter truth is, inside Jeffrey Epstein's darkroom, there are no partisan lines. There is only power protecting power. And Kash Patel is doing an exceptional job as the gatekeeper. When the pressure swelled to the breaking point, they were forced to sacrifice Pam Bondi. And it was tapped to take her place. Todd Blanche, President Trump's former personal defense attorney. Once again, the media machine eagerly rushed in to justify this absurdity.
Spent 22 years in the military, that he was running his own business, the youngest lawyer in New York at one point in time, lawmaker, but not the prosecution resume that you would hope for.
A year of on-the-job training and life experience to lead the most powerful prosecutorial agency in America. Here is the real reason. They desperately need a shield. Todd Blanche has never been a crime-fighting crusader. He was the president's personal defense lawyer. He is a man who spent his career slipping through legal loopholes, building legal fortresses to protect his clients from the sword of the state. His core expertise is defense. So why place a defense and shielding expert at the helm of the nation's largest prosecutorial agency? The answer is brutally obvious. This isn't a shakeup or a reform. This is the implementation of a perimeter defense. The power elite know full well that Pam Bondi let the situation slip out of her hands and was entirely powerless against the pressure of the hearings. They need a new shield, a figure with absolute loyalty and enough legal cunning to choke out any attempt to dig up the Epstein files. Installing Todd Blanche in this seat is a silent declaration from the Washington establishment. The door to the truth has been slammed shut. From this moment on, the Department of Justice abandons its role as the hunter, transforming into the guardian of secrets that must never be told. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 14 months, we have been forced to watch a masterclass in power manipulation. They changed the lead actors, they swapped the props, but the core script remains exactly the same. And that script is called Deadly Silence. Pam Bondi packs up and leaves with a resume heavily airbrushed by the media. Todd Blanche steps in with the mission of plugging the last remaining leaks. And Kash Patel sits right where he is, gripping the key to the vault containing America's filthiest truths. Who is on that list? Why does the massive American power apparatus have to pivot just to cover up a few flimsy pieces of paper until those dirty names are dragged into the light? Every promise about justice, about cleaning up the system, is nothing but garbage. Do not let the quick hits on Fox News or any mainstream network lull you to sleep with their fake praise. Keep your eyes glued to the blacked out text. The truth isn't in what they broadcast. The truth is in what they are using every dirty trick at any cost to bury. Thank you for joining us for today's in-depth analysis. If you found value in this video, please hit like, share, and subscribe so the power of the truth can spread. We will not stop tracking and reporting the latest developments surrounding the Epstein files. Take care, and we'll see you next time.